Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tang Men based on novel. So let's start. At that moment, a light appeared between Wang Dong's eyebrows, and the ball of golden light expanded at an astonishing speed, growing to a radius of about 10 meters, emitting a blinding light. Shangguan Can screamed, his mouth spewing fresh blood. He felt like his brain was about to split open, and the soul-sucking bell in his hand was shattered to pieces. The hammer in Wang Dong's hand flew out of his hand at this moment, drawing a beautiful and strong arc in the air as it flew straight towards Shangguan Can's chest. A figure appeared in front of Shangguan Can's body just in time. The strong body blocked the path of the hammer, and a ping sound could be heard as the hammer hit the body. The figure stepped 2 steps back to steady himself from the impact of the hammer, and remarked breathlessly, "What a strong force." The black light converged, and before anyone could see the hammer that was about to emerge from the black light, it disappeared. Wang Dong's body shook a little, but he stood his ground. Wasn't that the Soul Sage judge who just blocked the attack for Shangguan Can? The judge's appearance meant that this competition had finally ended. They really won. Wang Yang watched, dumbstruck, as Wang Dong limped towards Hu Yuhao, his lips trembling. Wang Yang was rendered speechless. He could never have guessed that this team made up of 4 soul ancestors, 1 soul elder, and 2 soul grandmasters, could have defeated a strong team of 3 soul kings, and 4 soul ancestors. Yes, even Shrek couldn't believe it. He Kaitu was also stupefied. When he had lost the round, he had thought that it was the end. After all, the opposing team had still had a rank 58 Soul King that had not entered the arena. Yet, a miracle happened again. Although Shrek Academy paid for their victory with blood, they did not lose the glory that belonged to the Shrek Academy. They won match. Shrek Academy had emerged victorious again. The whole match could only be described as immensely tragic. From the first round, Shusansha was already badly injured. Although he later exaggerated his injuries, Bei Bei had verified that the source of his injury was genuine. In the second round, Hikaitu had used all his power, and Xiao Xiao had sustained major injuries. Even her martial soul was crushed by her opponent. If not for the fact that she was born with 2 martial souls, this would have been a blow serious enough to force her departure from the competition. The third round didn't end any better, with Bei Bei unconscious after severe injuries, and Hu Yuhao on the ground, exhausted. Shockingly, the final victory was achieved by Wang Dong, whose soul power had already been completely depleted. In the 3 rounds of this match, it could be said that every one of Shrek's 7 monsters had tried their very best, and utilized every possible trick they had up their sleeves. They had won through sheer perseverance and will, despite being a much weaker team than their opponent, gaining the final victory. This victory was hard-earned, but to the Shrek Academy team and Shrek's 7 monsters, it was undoubtedly glorious. An unparalleled glory. Tears started to course uncontrollably down Wang Yang's cheeks, as he struggled to understand how Wang Dong had summoned a second martial soul, and the power with which Hu Yuhao had vanquished his opponent. The only thought that occupied his head was victory. They had achieved the final victory. Shrek had won. Victory for Shrek Academy in the Elite Continental Soul Master Academy tournament hadn't been so difficult for at least a few thousand years. This competition had certainly been difficult, but in Wang Yang's heart, this was more meaningful than an easy victory by Shrek Academy's regular members. He could see 7 stars gradually rising. In the near future, these 7 monsters would definitely become strong pillars of Shrek Academy. Far away, beyond the Imperial City and the battlements, the Star Luo Emperor had already taken off his crown. The atmosphere in Star Luo Plaza now was astonishingly frenzied, but it instantly quieted down upon hearing Wang Yang's announcement. The gazes of the audience were all drawn towards the tear-filled Wang Yang. Fellow friends, teachers, and students from the various participating academies. You all saw what just happened. For the sake of defending our academy's glory, my children from Shrek Academy have fought a long, bloody battle to obtain a final victory. I know. A lot of you are asking, why has Shrek Academy suddenly become so weak? Why was it so difficult for Shrek Academy to win? These kids have done all they could to finally create a miracle. This was simply an unwinnable match. They relied on their own willpower to persevere under all this, but why would a situation like this occur? This is a story known only to a few people in the academy, and I shouldn't say anything about it. However, I can't hold it in anymore. I have to stand in place of these venerable, admirable, and adorable children of mine to testify. Our Shrek Academy is known as the continent's #1 academy by everyone here, and we made ample preparations for this year's tournament like everyone else. However, none of the participating students you see in front of you were official members. They were preparatory team members who came here to gain some experience. They aren't representing our academy to take part in this tournament because we decided to give them this much experience. It's because we had no other choice. At this point, the various representative teams from the various academies, the populace, and even the emperor, who was originally planning to leave the city walls, felt curiosity in their hearts. Before we came to Star Luo City to participate in this tournament, our academy's official and preparatory teams were assigned to do something else. We were to eliminate a group of bandits that were led by an evil soul master in the Mingdo mountain range. They were a group of bandits who wantonly killed, robbed, and committed every imaginable evil act. For the sake of the safety of the merchants and common people who live in the Mingdo mountain range, our Shrek Academy decided to take it upon ourselves to solve this problem. Finally, we found those bandits and their leader in a cave. We completely dominated them in terms of strength, but that evil soul master used an evil skill to detonate the corpses of his fellow bandits. Due to the large number of dead bandits, that detonation caused severe injuries to our official team members. One of which died, and the other 6 received injuries to different extents. Of which, we've sent a few back to the academy to recuperate. The academy didn't have enough time to send more people, and thus we came here with a disjointed team. A few of our official team members who have lighter injuries are still resting in the hotel, and the only people we have who can come up are these preparatory team members. In reality, even the first match that we participated in was extremely tough for us. This team was only able to slowly get to this stage by diligently working together. For the sake of Shrek's glory, they have already given all they can, and as a teacher of Shrek Academy, I am proud of them. They will always be Shrek Academy's most dazzling students. The reason why I chose to stand in front of all of you today is because I wish for everyone here who has placed their hopes on Shrek Academy to not criticize these kids too harshly. Of the 7 of them, there are even 3 who are only 12 years old. The other 4 aren't even 15 yet. What more can we ask of them? Even if we lose this tournament, in my heart, they have won. That is all. Thank you, everyone. With that, Wang Yang handed the sound-amplifying soul tool to the referee, and bowed deeply towards the audience. Only then did he return to Hikaitu's side, and bring the 3 unconscious people down from the stage. The audience remained silent for a few seconds. Nobody cheered, but what replaced it was the sound of intense clapping. It started out soft, but it infected the entire arena. Even Shrek's opponents and the Emperor, and his ministers above the city walls were clapping for Shrek Academy. The enigma behind Shrek Academy's team was finally solved. It was exactly this that stunned everyone present. This was especially true for Wang Yang's last words. There were actually 3 of these kids, who were only 12 years old. As their opponents, Just Sky Academy felt like they couldn't raise their heads at all. They had lost. Not only had they lost to Shrek Academy's preparatory team, but they had lost to such young opponents. Naturally, there were 2 exceptions to this. Yi Wuqing and Yang Er were still stuck in Hui Yu Hao's Frost Seal, and no matter how hard the medical soul masters sent by the tournament's organizational committee tried, they were unable to melt the ice that covered them. Protected by a large number of medical personnel and soul masters from the Empire, Shrek Academy once again left the arena. Only, their departure was filled with a moving and tragic air. The audience wasn't even sure whether or not they could participate in the next match. They truly didn't wish for this tournament to lose the presence of Shrek Academy. They weren't just the continent's #1 academy, but one that could make its students go crazy to defend it. Without them, this tournament would definitely lose its luster. The next time Hu Yuhao came to, it was already the next morning. His physique had undergone a drastic change after the infusion of the Ice Jade Empress Scorpion's bones. This time, his exhaustion did not just stem from the expenditure of his soul power, more substantially, it came from when the Ice Empress was manipulating his body and channeled the true power of the bones. His body was nearly unable to withstand the pressure. After a day and night of recuperation, in addition to the natural regenerative abilities of his bones and bodily functions, he felt a lot better than before. Ma Xiaodao drifted into his sight the moment he opened his eyes. Ma Xiaodao was not clad in red like she usually was. Instead, she was wearing a cascading white dress, and was just quietly sitting there, with her flowing pink hair hanging loosely behind her back. There was an enchanting beauty and tranquility about her. Sister Xiaodao, Hu Yuhao shouted in shock. Hu Yuhao sensed the state of his body. His soul power was almost fully replenished, and even though he could feel throbbing aches all over his body, his passageways were intact. The sentence spoken by the Ice Empress, when she took over his body, floated into his mind. Control. You must be able to control every single ounce of power in your body with meticulous accuracy, and only then can you defeat a stronger opponent. The true power of the Ice Empress was not something that his current body could handle. However, after the first channeling of her power, the reason why his body was hurt, but not damaged, was due to the Ice Empress' perfect control. The impeccable manipulation was simply spectacular and breathtaking to him. I'm feeling a lot better. Hu Yuhao struggled to get up, and his blanket slipped down from his shoulders. He suddenly realized that there wasn't a single thread on his body, as he gasped and reflexively hugged himself across his chest. Ha ha. Ma Xiaodao chuckled as she watched his awkward display of embarrassment. Seriously? It's not as if I haven't seen your little peanut before. Hu Yuhao's mouth hung agape, as he felt his face flush with hot blood. His cheeks were red and puffed out as he exclaimed once again, "It's not a peanut." Ma Xiaodao couldn't control her amusement any longer as she laughed heartily. Her actions were faintly elegant as she said, "I guess it's true that no matter how old you are, males will always have an unrivaled ego about that thing. All right, I won't tease you anymore. Since there's nothing you need to do, go wash up and grab a bite. Then you will rest." She stood up as she spoke and stretched her back lazily. She had been watching over Hu Yuhao for an entire night. No matter how powerful her abilities were, she hadn't fully healed from her own injuries, and it was inevitable that she felt a little exhausted. Her stretch instantly placed her perfect, and even slightly exaggerated curves in front of Hu Yuhao, and caused his little guy to flush even more. At this moment, the door opened and somebody walked in. From that person's perspective, he just witnessed Ma Xiaodao stretching her back, and the half-naked Hu Yuhao, whose cheeks were flushed with embarrassment. "You guys," Wang Dong gasped as he stood at the doorway, stunned at the sight before his eyes, which started to grow red. Ma Xiaodao stretched once more before she sauntered to the door and came up in front of Wang Dong. She tapped him lightly on the head. "Don't think about all this nonsense at such a young age. I think he's fine, and you look like you've recovered as well. Go grab a bite together," she said as she pushed the door open and stepped out. This light tap on the head knocked Wang Dong to his senses, and he instantly reoriented himself. He scratched his head and laughed at himself. "Yes. We're only 12 years old. How are you, Yuhao? You look like you were just violated," Wang Dong snapped. Hu Yuhao dove right back under his blanket. "Xiaodao was right, your head is just full of nonsense with all that talk of violation. She said we won, so please tell me, how did we win?" Wang Dong grunted and sat down on the same stool that Ma Xiaodao had just gotten up from. "Of course it was done with a single hammer stroke from my soul elder that silenced them all." Hu Yuhao was a little confused, and asked curiously, "Was I not the one that dealt the winning blow?" Even though he didn't know what had happened, he had absolute faith in the powers of the Ice Empress. Wang Dong recounted the final scenes of the battle in detail, including the part where he threw out the hammer, a hammer. Truly a masterstroke. That must be your second martial soul. What's it called? Hui Yuhao asked curiously. Wang Dong watched his face of plain calmness and asked with amused impertinence, aren't you surprised that I have two martial souls? Hui Yuhao grunted and answered, what's so surprising about that? I've known that all along. Wang Dong glared and opened his eyes wide. No way. I've never revealed my second martial soul before. Hui Yuhao laughed mischievously and said, but our martial souls have fused before. Don't you know the requirements for a martial soul fusion skill? Teacher Wang Yang said it before. Even though a martial soul fusion skill doesn't require both parties to have the same martial souls, they have to be compatible with each other. The strength of the martial soul fusion is also intricately connected to our compatibility, and our compatibility rate was so high that even teacher Wang said it was extremely rare. How can it be that I have two martial souls and you only have one? I will never believe that. So, even though I don't know what it is, I've always known you had a second martial soul. Then why have you never asked? Wang Dong murmured as he lowered his head. Hui Yuhao shrugged. Why would I? Everybody has their own secrets. Even though we are the best of friends, probing into others' secrets is not a good thing. Everybody needs personal space, no? Wang Dong raised his head once again, as he glanced at Hui Yuhao with a look of astonishment. That means that you have a secret that I don't know about. Quick, spill it. Hui Yuhao chortled and said with resolute righteousness, over my dead body. A cunning look came over Wang Dong's face. So you won't say it unless I beat you till you're dead. He pounced on Hui Yuhao as he spoke, help. Hui Yuhao screamed as they fought into a bundle with the blanket separating them. Wang Dong tugged on the blanket and Hui Yuhao, who was hiding underneath it, was instantly completely exposed. A shrill cry came out from Wang Dong's mouth as he saw the said little peanut that Ma Xiaodao was just talking about. Hui Yuhao snatched the blanket back and glared at Wang Dong with furious eyes. You gangster, you even want to peep at people of the same gender. Wang Dong recovered at the same time and shot back. So you've peeped at people of the opposite gender? Of course I haven't. Hui Yuhao denied, but the glorious images of his tryst with Ma Xiaodao inside Sea God's Lake slowly drifted into his head. For young men, it is normal to have such fantasies as long as one doesn't lose control. Wang Dong leapt down from the bed with puffy cheeks and said, all right. Go wash up and get dressed now so we can eat. I came to see you as soon as I woke up, so I'm famished. I haven't eaten anything since the competition yesterday. As he spoke, he turned around and strolled over to the sofa on the side and closed his eyes as he turned away from Hui Yuhao. Hui Yuhao got out of bed as well and stretched his body, feeling sore all over. However, after a night's rest and the natural healing abilities of the mysterious heaven technique, his mobility was not affected. You're right, it's time to grab a bite. We should continue training and healing once we're done eating. My overdraft from the competition is serious, and my passageways are swelling with discomfort. We still have another round of the competition tomorrow, so we have to try our best to recover today. We've only cleared a single challenging hurdle. Who's that? As they were speaking to each other, Hui Yuhao suddenly felt an ominous tinge of alarm flash by in his head as he glanced towards the window subconsciously. Following the continuous rise in his abilities and his training of the spiritual sea, Hui Yuhao's spiritual awareness was a lot sharper than before. In addition to that fact, the arriving party had no intention to mask himself or herself, so Hui Yuhao detected the intruder at the first possible instance. In a flash, a single person appeared before Hui Yuhao. Fortunately, he was properly dressed at this point, and his little peanut wasn't exposed. The person who came was an elder, who was scraggy and of average height. However, he seemed to be brimming with energy. On the surface, he appeared to be around 60 years old, and his short hair was dark brown. His gaze was filled with passion and vigor as it landed on Hui Yuhao. An invisible pressure bore down on Hui Yuhao and stifled him instantly. Wang Dong, whose eyes were originally shut, immediately bounced up upon hearing Hui Yuhao's voice and stood beside him. There was no doubt that the elderly man, who had come in through the window, didn't harbor good intentions. The elderly man did not respond. As he raised his right hand, Hu Yuhao and Wang Dong felt their eyes go dark as the surrounding light dimmed. A frightening soul power that left them fetid permeated the entire room in an instant. At this point, they felt like they were trapped in a cage, without even a chance to struggle and resist. As he watched the elderly man, Hu Yuhao was bewildered. He had never seen this man before, and neither did he know what he was here for. Soul Land 2 Episode 40 Part 1 end here.